So something happened over the weekend. I actually checked my email and I noticed there was an email from AOC's team. And I thought, that's weird. I haven't received emails from her team in a while. I thought I had opted out. Apparently, I didn't opt out of everything. And the email had a flyer about an event that AOC was going to host. And that event happened yesterday. Now, AOC has responded to the criticism that she's been receiving about this event. I just want to give you a heads up about that. And we're going to show that tonight as well. But this is what I received in the email. So I took the screenshot and it says, AOC, join Representatives AOC and Adriano Espaillat at the Student Services Fair. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. I almost exited the email, but then I started to scroll down and then I saw the rest of it. Representatives AOC and Adriano Espaillat are hosting a student services fair to help students connect with the U.S. Department of Education, our U.S. service academies, internship opportunities, and more. Okay. Note U.S. services academies. Then they gave the time, the location, and said this was going to be at Renaissance High School in the Bronx. Register here. This is the piece that I almost did not see. We will be joined by special guests from the U.S. Naval Academy, the U.S. Air Force Academy, the U.S. Military Academy, the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy, the U.S. Department of Education, former interns, and last year's winner of the Congressional App Challenge. Notice they put the military academies first. So that was the first thing that jumped out when I saw this. Now, let me explain something to you. I know people that have gone to every single one of these academies. I've had friends from high school that was in the Naval Academy, that was in the Air Force Academy, that was in the U.S. Military Academy, that was in the Merchant Marine Academy. I know people that have been in all of these military institutions, all of them. Why am I telling you that? Because when AOC discusses this, she's not going to tell you the reality about those military academic institutions. I am, because I was close with people who were in them. So that's important to know. So I said, AOC is trying to recruit Black and brown high school kids to join the military. So much for being a democratic socialist. Dem socialist. Is this your queen? That was a play on Black Panther when he said, is this your king? Is this your queen? Now, why is that important? In 2020, AOC, in an interview, stated that she does not believe in the military recruiting at high schools. She went on to say she was against that, but that was in 2020. As we've seen over the years, AOC has definitely changed. Now, I was not the only one who shared that picture. A lot of people shared it, and I think one of them may have gone viral. Now, the event happened yesterday, and I want to show you this from BX Commie posted. Here are the facts, AOC. We are public school parents, teachers, community organizers, and activists uniting under Bronx Anti-War Coalition to demand military recruiters out of our schools and justice for Black, brown, indigenous youth murdered on U.S. military bases. Now, that piece right there is important because I'm going to show you a story about that, someone's actual story, where they actually were affected in that situation. The high school that this event took place at, this Renaissance High School, the student population is predominantly African American and Latino. And when I say predominantly, I mean predominantly. That's why I said what I said. Now, this event had a protest. I know some of the people who protested at this event, protested outside the event. And Democracy Now! Actually covered part of the protest, believe it or not. Let's get to that clip. And then I'm going to tell you more, because AOC is trying to claim that these military academies are not what we think they are. Let's get into this clip from Democracy Now!
And here in New York, dozens of community organizers, parents, teachers, and students rallied at a Bronx high school Monday, protesting a military recruitment and job fair event hosted by New York Congress members Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Adriano Espaillat.
Now, notice what she said: military recruitment and jobs services or jobs fair event. So even Amy Goodman realized that there was military recruitment going on at this event, because I'm telling you this because AOC is trying to say there wasn't. That's ridiculous. Let's go on.
Called Student Services Fair featured representatives from military service academies for the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard. Advocates accused Ocasio-Cortez of backtracking on her anti-war campaign promises and policies opposing predatory military recruitment tactics that predominantly target Black, Latinx, and low-income students. In 2020, Ocasio-Cortez proposed a ban against military recruitment on the online gaming platform Twitch, while she later pushed for a bill amendment that would have halted federal funding for military recruitment in middle and high schools. This is Richie Marino, an organizer with the Bronx Anti-War Coalition, at Monday's rally at Renaissance High School, which took place on the 20th anniversary of the U.S. invasion.
There's Jose right there. I don't know if you guys can see, but Jose's here. Okay, I think Lucy was the one holding the camera.
Of Iraq.
A lot of youth here are struggling to find jobs. Many youth here are not prepared to go to college, right? Instead of bringing military recruiters here, we should be having a jobs fair. We should be having a college fair. Renaissance High School is an arts and theater school. Where are the arts and theater programs represented here, AOC? You're saying this is a student services fair. Where are the services for the youth?
Richie Marino was speaking with Democracy Now!'s Sanji Lopez. Organizers also demanded justice for Vanessa Guillen and Ana Basilio Ruiz, two Latina women who were killed after they reported being sexually assaulted at Fort Hood Army Base in Texas. Yep. Guillen in 2020, Ruiz last week, and 21-year-old Abdul Latifu, who was murdered in January by another soldier at Fort Rucker.
There's Lucy right here on the right. Just wanted to point that out.
Alabama. Latifu was from the Bronx. And those are...
Okay, now she mentioned Latifu, and that's important for you to know, because she stated that Latifu is from the Bronx. I want you to remember this, because when you see the response from AOC, it's just flat out lies. Flat out lies. Now, there were a couple of speeches that happened at the protest. I want to show you one from a colonel who was present. Listen to what he has to say.
Options. Deadly options. Choose your weapons. Sorry. Those are deadly.
Wait, let him talk. Let him talk.
Not your children. Our children.
There are other options in there. There's representatives from the city of New York. There's representatives from different colleges in New York. So listen, not every kid wants to go into the military for some of the reasons that you state, and I respect your opinion. That's why there's other options in there for the kids. Every kid, why was in there? Because I was invited. This is what I do. I live in the 14th district. I live right here. I live right here in the Bronx. Public school educated. PS 106, junior high school 127, and the great DeWitt Clinton High School, class of 1971. Okay?
Yeah, but these were better in school back then.
So, yes, it was. It was an all-boys school, and now I'm proud to say it's co-ed. So I was asked to be on the selection committee for the 14th Congressional District, where we review the applications for those high school students that want to serve and want to go into one of the service academies. It's very, very competitive. They get $1 million education, by going to the service academy.
Yes, it's very competitive, but let's be real, okay? These recruiters, they came to my high school. They came to a lot of people's high schools. I avoided them like the plague. One of the recruiters came into our classroom, and by the way, I didn't go to a low income school, high school, but I lived in, a city in North Carolina. I lived in Fayetteville, right outside of Fayetteville, North Carolina, and there is a military base in Fayetteville. So they came to all the schools. It didn't matter if you were in a low income school or not. They came to all of them because there was military. Fort Bragg was like right there. But we had a soldier came to one of our classes and spoke to the class. Do you know that same soldier came to my house? That soldier came to my parents' house. My dad answered the door. And my dad is not one to yell. He's not one to anger easily. He just doesn't get frustrated easily. He's pretty chill. That night, he was not chill because I had already told the recruiter when I was in school that I was not interested in joining the military, that I was going to college. He came to my parents' house. My dad answered the door. And my dad said, "Didn't my daughter tell you earlier today she wasn't interested? Why are you here? How did you get our address?" And he goes on to say, "Well, Sergeant, I would like the chance to actually talk to her. There was a lot of people in the class and sit down one-on-one." And my dad pulled the door back a little bit, looked at him and said, because I was peeking I was in my bedroom, but I was peeking. I was being nosy. And my dad pulled the door back and he said, "Not interested," and slammed the door. Let's just say he didn't come back. But the point that I want to make, the colonel here is telling you the kids who are interested fill out an application. It doesn't work like that. They ask you. They come up to you. They approach you. Even at the fairs, the job fairs, they approach you. They say, "Hey, join the military, join the Navy, join the Coast Guard. Come to the Air Force Academy. Do you have what it takes?" It's not like they just stand there and don't say anything. And that's the point that he's leaving out. And they're going to these schools, this school particular in the Bronx, predominantly black and Latino, low income, and military recruiters heavily recruit at those particular schools that have those types of demographics because they know the benefits that they are offering is something that they may want. Great health care. TRICARE pays for almost everything. You get the opportunity to travel. You can be stationed in Germany or anywhere else in the world if given the opportunity to do so. So you can leave your poverty situation. You get a chance to get out of the Bronx. This is your ticket out of the Bronx if you join the military. They also offer free college. You want to go to college? Join the military. We'll pay for your schooling. It's not like they come up to you and they say, "Join the military. You get to fight in a war. Join the military if you want to be deployed to Iraq, to Afghanistan." They leave those things out. But they offer benefits that a lot of these kids otherwise would not get the opportunity to have, and they see it as their ticket out of poverty. And that's why they target those schools in particular. You don't see them for the most part. Like I said, we were right outside of Fort Bragg, but you don't see them for the most part. They're not going to rich schools. These military recruiters and these military academies, they're not going to high schools like at Beverly Hills. They target low-income black and brown kids.
Not everyone kills. Listen, I spent 22 years in the Marine Corps. I never ever even fired my gun unless it was on the rifle range.
Dude, we're on the verge of 2 wars with China and Russia. What the hell are you talking about?
Let me tell you what my proudest moment in the United States Marine Corps was when I was a second lieutenant. One of my collateral duties was I was a legal officer at Camp Pendleton, California. There was a young kid that came in. He was of Mexican descent. And I could tell he was under distress. And he said, "Sir, I need your help. My grandmother is down in Mexico. She's over 90 years old. And my mom, who's living in California, would love for her mother to come and live her final days with us." So I said, okay, I'm from the Bronx, New York. I can accomplish anything. I wrote a letter to the American Embassy down in Mexico, signed, my name, 2nd Lieutenant, United States Marine Corps. 6 weeks later, that same young Marine, Lance Corporal, comes into my office with a smile on his face. Guess who is now in the United States? His grandmother, his mother's mother. That was the proudest day I ever had in the Marine Corps. Thank you.
What does that have to do with you recruiting low-income Black and brown kids? We don't need to hear his resume. He's out here, let me talk about what I've done. That's just a way for him to convince the protesters, hey, we're not that bad. That's what he's doing there.
Very much.
Yes.
Okay, so that was one of the speeches. There's another speech that is very different. There was another gentleman who was also one of the protesters. And he talks about what happened to his brother after his brother joined the military and he was stationed in Alabama. And I want you to hold on to that thought for just a second, because AOC is responding. She's responding to the people who criticized her for hosting this event. She's already telling lies. Listen to this. I can't believe it. And shout out to Lucy, Blue Moon Red Wine, for capturing all of this.
Because people can just like politics is so crazy because people can just like wake up and make up whatever they want to say about you and it'll be totally false and people will just believe it, right? They'll just believe it. So today someone made up a rumor that me was hosting a military recruitment fair for high school.
Now, what did Amy Goodman on Democracy Now! Say? Didn't Amy Goodman say it was a military recruiting event and a job fair? Both can be true at the same time. It could be true that there were other employers at this event, but it could also be true that this was a military recruitment event as well. So AOC is saying that these are rumors. I showed you the flyer. You heard from Amy Goodman. You heard from some of the protesters, and you're going to hear from more. But she's going to make it seem like this is all made up. People are lying on her in typical AOC fashion.
Now, like, does that sound like something I would do?
Yes.
Like, no shade to anybody, but just me. Does that sound like something I would do? No? Then basic due diligence would mean ask a follow-up question, right? Like, just because someone is like said something on Twitter and posted a screenshot, like, ask the next step is not I'm just going to believe that and share it. The next step is let me ask a follow-up question, right? But that didn't happen today.
How can anyone ask her a follow-up question when she doesn't even want to talk to people? She only wants to talk to the people who support her. She doesn't want to talk to people who are critical of her. And that doesn't just include people in left independent media and some of them who still champion for her and still praise her. That includes people in her own district. That includes her constituents, which, by the way, Lucy and Jose are AOC's constituents. They live in her district in the Bronx. So how are people supposed to ask a follow-up question if she doesn't even talk to the people who want to give her some type of criticism?
So what did happen today? Well, a lot of people don't know that your member of Congress can extend a lot of opportunities to you, especially if you're in high school. And there are things, for example, did you know that there's a congressional art challenge that happens every year? And if your piece of art is selected by your member of Congress, then you and your family fly to Washington. It gets hung up in the U.S. Capitol. It's a big deal if you want to apply to colleges and schools. There's also a congressional app challenge for high schoolers as well. And if you can design an app, which Melissa right over here did and won, it's also a really, really big deal. And you can have just like so much progress for college or any other opportunities as well.
That has nothing to do with the military academies that were present at this event.
Well, City Year, which is over there, provides a gap year. If you're not ready to go to college, you can spend a gap year in service. And so we held a student services fair to show all of the opportunities that are available to high school students. There were a small amount that had to do with our U.S. service academies. Now, maybe you haven't heard of what a service academy is. Maybe you have. But maybe you've heard of institutions like West Point or Annapolis. And these are kind of like colleges, universities, military colleges, universities, except there is a requirement in my job. Part of my job just comes with the role.
We're going to pause right there because I actually had a friend that went to West Point. I told you, I know people that went to these military academies that she's speaking of. My friend that went to West Point, it is very difficult to get into, right after West Point, joined the Army. In fact, everyone I know that went to these military academies, afterwards, they joined that military branch of service. Now, they didn't enter as a lower rank, like an E1 in the Army, for example. They were able to come in. Some of them were able to go in as an officer because they had the military academic training and because they had a bachelor's degree. So they were able to come in at a higher rank. But the idea of going to these military academies is that afterwards you will join the military. So here's AOC trying to gaslight people. Really? As if, see, this is why, like, she could not do this with me. She could not do this with me. If she were to come to me and say this with me, are you kidding me? I came from a military family. I know numerous people that went to these military academies. I know what those academies are for, and I know what happens after people leave those military academies. This is why she won't talk to people that know about it. She doesn't want to talk to anybody that's going to call her out on her BS. Let's go on. There's more.
Is that you cannot apply to these schools without a nomination, a federal nomination from your member of Congress, your representative, your senator, the vice president of the United States, or the president of the United States.
Not true. Everyone I know, where she's getting this from. I don't know where this information is coming from. Unless something changed, and I mean within the past 4 years, everyone I know that went to these schools did not have to get nominations from politicians. None of them, in fact. Yes, did they need letters of recommendation? Absolutely. Most of these people were in junior ROTC and were in ROTC when we were middle school and high school. So they were able to get their commanding officer for the ROTC program to write a letter of recommendation, as well as other people as well. But if that happened, that is very new to me, because none of them that I knew got any politician to write them any type of letter of recommendation. And that includes my friend that went to West Point, by the way.
You cannot apply without that letter. And so we have a responsibility to inform people of that process. And there were a couple tables there today to talk about that. Now,
that has nothing to do with the fact that you made the statement in 2020, you ran in 2018, you made the statement in 2020 that you are opposed to them going to the high schools. And yet here you are with them at the high schools. I don't get this. I really don't get it. And I don't believe that every congresswoman or congressman has had to do this.
All of these tables, and even that was like such a small fraction of all the tables and stuff that was there. We even had the Department of Education come in, representatives, to deliver a presentation on the changes to FAFSA that are coming up. In case you don't know, the FAFSA application process and some of those things are changing. And so people really need to know that. A lot of kids do their FAFSA on their own. I had to file my FAFSA by myself, and this is really important information to have. So, I mean, judge for yourself. Does this look like a recruitment fair to you? No.
Yes, that's what they look like. Do you see what I mean? Like, this is exactly what it look. Yes, they have the tables, they have presentations, they have slides. That's what it looks like.
No, but somebody started a rumor that that's what was going on.
There was no rumor that was started. It was an email that your team sent out to people. That's actually how I saw it. And other people saw it on Twitter. So what do you mean rumor? I just showed you guys the flyer. Did the flyer not mention all those military academic academies? They listed them. So let's not pretend like the damn flyer doesn't have that information on the flyer. And not only did they list them, but they listed them first. They didn't list the Department of Education first. But she's going to blame everybody. It's never her. She's never at fault.
Just believed it and accepted it. And the problem is when large accounts started to platform this, and then it starts spreading like wildfire. And it results in demands to cancel this event or for me to not show up to it.
Wow, demands. Imagine that. Something that you don't have. Demand something you don't know about because you don't do that. The squad doesn't do that. So she's saying large accounts. She know who the large account is. She just doesn't want to say it. She don't want to say the names. But if you go on Twitter, you'll see it. You'll see who she's referring to.
Which would almost be like canceling, it's canceling an appearance. And so for doing this today, I was really subject to a lot of really vile rhetoric and attacks all day to day.
Oh my God, people are attacking me again. This woman is forever the victim. I kid you not. You can't criticize her. Criticizing her is considered an attack. Woe is me, AOC. Don't critique me. Don't criticize me. Don't judge me. Don't do anything. Now, I'm saying this because she's going to go on to say that she believes that politicians should be held accountable. But she says that, but then she doesn't like it when people try to hold her accountable.
Because of a rumor. And I can't stress how much this is not just a right-wing thing. Social media algorithms incentivize conflict. They incentivize misinformation and disingenuous framing.
So AOC's tweets get way more views and way more, promotion than the rest of us. So what is she saying about her own account? Like, this is something I really want you to think about. Now she's trying to say it's right wing. Pay attention to this, guys. You notice this trend that's going on. Anytime now that you criticize someone from the Democratic Party, especially if you criticize someone from the squad, the trend is to say they're right wing. That's the trend. Lucy canvassed for AOC. AOC probably doesn't remember that. She's in a celebrity bubble now. She probably doesn't even remember. But Lucy knocked on doors and canvassed for AOC. Lucy is not right wing. But this is what they're doing. She's going right along with it. Let's smear them. Let's say it's a right wing thing. No, AOC, you are being criticized by the very same people who canvassed for you, by the very same people who voted for you, by the very same people who donated money to you. And instead of just accepting that you have faults and you are flawed, and that you have backtracked on your campaign promises, you want to smear everybody else who criticizes you for not following up on what you said that you would do.
Because a lie, as they say, a lie can go out the door and run around the world before the truth has the time to.
This is Richie right here. Richie was there. Richie said she is lying and smearing us. Everybody, like, seriously, like, it's for me, it's not even for the views, but make sure, like, Eric, we're going to clip this and I'll post it tomorrow when it's clipped. When you get that clip, make sure you share this to people, because I want people to see how AOC is sitting here lying on her own constituents.
Put on its shoes. And it really has an effect, because these campaigns are usually targeted most towards candidates and officials of color and women, and people who defend marginalized communities.
Stop. So let me just say something here for a second. I'm a woman. I'm a Black woman. I was one of the people that called AOC out on it. What's her excuse for me? The people who are targeted are usually women and women, people of color, and I'm both. And I called you out on your BS. So you're going to say that I'm some type of sexist? You're going to say I'm some type of racist? This is why she won't have these conversations with people like me, or people like, honestly, anybody in left independent media that don't kiss her ass. This is exactly why. She could not have this conversation with me. I'm not right wing. I'm not a white male. I'm a woman just like her. And I'm a Black woman. So what's her excuse for me?
All the time, all the time. And then even worse, after some of these accounts started platforming and spreading false, just this completely false claim.
It wasn't a false claim, and it wasn't platforming. It's called a retweet.
It circulated big. Like, there was one account where like 12,000 people liked it. And then it started to send strangers from outside of our community, completely not from the Bronx, to drive to this high school and try to enter this high school with children inside.
She is a damn lie. Such a liar. People outside of our community, these people live right in the Bronx. They live right there in the Bronx. Tried to enter this high school with children inside. Let me tell you something. There were a couple of parents of those children inside the high school that tried to enter the high school. They would not let the parents of the kids come in. So why were military recruiters, military academies, why were they talking to these kids and preventing the parents from coming in? This is the story that she's not going to tell you. But since I know the people who were on the ground, and since I have the videos, I'm here to let you know. They didn't want the parents of the kids. They tried to block those parents from coming into the school. Those are the people that she's talking about. The protesters, which you just saw on Democracy Now!, live in her district. She is a liar. She is gaslighting you. And I don't understand how people can continue to fall for it anymore. I really don't. Do you see this? You see this, DSA? This your queen? You see how she just lied on her own constituents? I've said it before. She is the biggest fraud.
Because people just decided that they wanted to repost something because an algorithm tickled this, part of our brain that wants to make us mad instead of make us pause and say, do I have the complete picture here?
People wanted to retweet it because we know that you're a liar.
It leads to real safety issues. And I just think it's an opportunity for all of us to pause and take a.
Now I'm not safe. This is a safety issue. I'm scared. There were protesters angry at me. I don't feel safe. I need a safe space. The same woman who tried to tell you that protests are supposed to agitate, they're supposed to disrupt. Now she wants to run and hide and get on Instagram and snitch like a Karen. That's what she sounds like right now. All you got to do is put a wine glass in front of her face right now. You see how this works? And most of the people who were protesting, who were confronting her, were people of color and women like her.
Breath, because it's not all what it looks like sometimes. Lastly, you know, there's some people with large platforms, you know, sharing things like this, and they're like, I'm just trying to hold my elected official accountable. And
you have a large platform and you share a lot of things on Twitter with your large platform that gets multiple retweets, that gets multiple, you know, shares and likes and all of that stuff. But it's okay for her to do it. It's not okay for other people with large platforms to do it because they are criticizing her and she can't stand to be critiqued.
And that's good. That's important. Accountability is important. Debate is important. Disagreement is important. And if we want to have a conversation about service academies, which are not the same thing as enlistment recruiters, like it's just not the same thing. They're two different things.
Not really. She doesn't have the background and experience I do. Okay, let's just be real. All right. She does not have the background and experience I do. I come from a military family. I know multiple people that have gone to those military service academies, academic academies, and they all join the military after. That is the idea. Yes, you get to get this great education. Yes, you get the training for military for that type of branch that you're in. And then the idea is that you go into the military after. It's still recruiting. You're still being recruited. This woman is such a liar. Like, I can't. I really can't. Nobody should have to sit up here and tolerate this BS. Instead of AOC having this conversation on Instagram to a bunch of people that's just going to comment and a bunch of comments that she's not going to look at, and the comments are going to be limited anyway, why doesn't she go on anyone else's show and debate them on this topic, huh? Why doesn't she go on any left independent media show and have this conversation instead of talking into Instagram bubble? She wants to talk to people that can't talk back. She doesn't want you to respond to her. That's the problem. If she's so strong and comfortable and confident about what she's saying, why won't she have this conversation on left independent media with someone who does have the experience? Because there's a lot that I could tell her about these military academies.
But if we want to have a conversation about that, that's fine. That is different than spreading a false rumor that's so exaggerated that it literally leads to random adults trying to enter a high school.
So she's calling those kids' parents random adults. One of the things about the military, there have been problems with the military where some people send their kids off to the military and they don't return. There have been those issues. One was a gentleman named Latifu. I want you to hear about this, and then I'm going to let you see the speech from his brother, who was also one of the protesters. Bronx family looking for answers after soldier killed on Alabama Army base. Mohammed Latifu says he wants answers after his 21-year-old brother, Private Abdul Latifu, died on January 10th at Fort Rucker, a U.S. Army base in Alabama. The Army says his death stemmed from injuries during an incident with another soldier. Mohammed says, I just want justice to be served. I was at home and my dad called me and says, we got a problem. What, Dad? Your brother passed. My phone dropped from my hand. I didn't know what to do. The Army charged Private Brian Jones with murder. Muhammad says the Army told him his brother got into an altercation with Jones, who was his roommate. Muhammad says his brother was not confrontational and that he's having a hard time accepting this news. Now, I want you to hear from Muhammad. I want you to hear Muhammad tell you about what happened to his brother. Again, this is outside of the high school. He's one of the protesters. Notice that the article said Bronx family, and AOC is trying to tell people these are outside people that came into their community. These people live right in the Bronx.
2021, but unfortunately, one of his roommates decided to just end his life. Yes, at Fort Rucker, Alabama. We got the call January 10th of 2023. His life was short-lived in the military. He didn't even serve for 5 or 6 months. And it was still a sensitive topic. He had just turned 21 years old. January 3rd.
Sorry.
My brother was just a quiet person. He never fought. He never had no arguments with nobody. And he never spoke back, even to my parents, nor either of his siblings. He was big on anime. His recent one was 2 Piece, or 1 Piece, I believe. You know, that's what it is. That's what they call it these days. I'm not big on that, but he was very, very smart. Very quiet gentleman. So to get that story or the phone call from one of the colonels stating that my brother was brutally murdered in his own dorm room, it saddens me. 2 months has gone by. We're yet to get any answers from the military.
So his brother was murdered. He said dorm room is basically the barracks. His brother was murdered in the barracks, and the United States military seemed to have no answer for this. And Muhammad's not alone. You heard them mention earlier the 2 women that were killed at Fort Hood in Texas. Those 2 women reported incidents of sexual assault in the military, and they were killed afterwards. Sexual assault is not uncommon in the military. There have been multiple stories of female soldiers that have been assaulted and have reported it, and nothing happened to their perpetrators. And oftentimes the perpetrator was actually a soldier in their unit. But they want to recruit these kids at these high schools to go into this.
Nobody calls the house, and they don't tell us anything. They've called us so far, quote unquote, for updates. The very first update was February 10th, stating that they gathered the evidence to take him to the lab. Understand me?
Sorry.
Even an amateur understands that if a crime occurs, you have to gather the evidence and take it to the lab. That's not what my parents want to hear. That's not what I, my sister, nor my 3 other brothers want to hear. We want to hear what really happened, what took place. Was there an event that took place prior to him getting killed? What happened? They're yet to tell us anything.
So they have yet to tell him anything, and it is now March 21st. This event happened yesterday. If you want to see more of these clips, because Lucy was the one that filmed this, if you go to Lucy's channel, Blue Moon Red Wine, Lucy has a whole list of them. Let me go up to the whoopee. Okay, here we go. Lucy has a whole list of these videos. I think she put all of them up last time I checked. Yes. So AOC denies hosting military recruitment. Colonel from the Army speaks. There's Muhammad's story. Also, IFCO rep talks about military recruitment in NYC. There's also Danny speaks. IFCO again. Participant at anti-military recruitment rally explains how she was blocked from entering. Oh no, this one I do want to play. Hold on.
There early, I pretended that I was a parent, but if you weren't registered at that time, I was told I could just wait on the side.
Another thing is, when you join the military,
students were seated, they would allow me to
the
enter.
military
So I waited and waited. There were 2 colonels that entered. There was a flyer, but first of all, a giant photo
deadliest
of
toxins in the
AOC,
planet.
really big.
So she said inside the fair, there was a flyer, but there was also a giant photo of AOC.
That was the entrance. And then here is what they handed out. The U.S. Naval Academy, U.S. Air Force Academy, U.S. Military Academy, U.S. Merchant Marine, U.S. Coast Guard Academy.
See, that's what I was telling you. The promotion, even though AOC says the Department of Education was there, the promotion was the military service academies. That was what was being promoted. And if you have someone like AOC, who's obviously a very popular politician, and you have her face blown up for everyone to see at this event, obviously those kids are going to be like, oh, it's AOC. It's someone from the hood, from our neighborhood. It's someone we know, like, you know, da-da-da. Like, obviously that's going to pique their interest and make them want to go to the event. That was on purpose. So I don't care what AOC said in that video. She can miss me with all of that because I know how the military works and I know how those military service academy works. So she can miss me with all of that. She's a fraud. Thank you so much for the membership. V. Olaf's daughter. Thank you so much for becoming a Sabby member. Thank you for the super chat, Joker. Sexual assault and suicides are very high in the military. Yeah, there's a whole documentary about this, by the way, too. You know, it's not for everybody. Like, if you get triggered, I don't recommend watching it. But there's a documentary about that. It's just a lot of times it's underreported. Corey, anyone remember that video game America's Army was a first-person shooter that was a straight-up recruitment tool? That's right. Violin says AOC, the new face of the MIC. Thank you for the super chat, Roger. Cosmic Karen, because her careness is out of this world. Thank you for the super chat, Mary. Did you know she used to intern for Senator Ted Kennedy? It explained her tactics and her bartender days were a ruse. That's right. That's why I said anyone interning with Ted Kennedy, you're trying to have a career in politics. So that statement that she gives, like she didn't care if she was a one-term congressperson, is BS. No one just easily got an internship with Ted Kennedy. Okay. I live here. I know. Thank you for the super chat, Larez. 700 plus bases are why they need more recruits and why we can't have universal health care or free college, which recruits do get. Close bases and defund the military. That is 100% true. That's why they're not going to make public universities free or universal health care, because that takes away from military recruitment. Thank you for the super chat, Harrison, friend of the show, Sabby Bullseye. Oz says AOC is a coward without a doubt.